Tom lived in a quiet neighborhood where the houses looked almost the same, and the streets stayed calm most of the time. People there liked order and rules, and that was why they had a group called the Homeowners Association. The members of this group thought they had control over everything that happened in the area. They wanted every lawn cut the same way, every fence painted in the same color, and every car parked in the right place. Tom was different from most of his neighbors. He liked peace, but he did not like being told what to do all the time. He had bought his house because it came with a lake behind it, and that lake was his favorite part of life. Every morning he walked to the edge of the water with a cup of tea in his hand, watching the birds fly over and listening to the soft sound of waves. Sometimes he went fishing, and sometimes he took out his small wooden boat. The boat was not fancy, but it was strong and steady. He had repaired it with his own hands, and he felt proud every time he pushed it into the water. One sunny morning, Tom tied his boat to the small dock he had built. He stood there enjoying the cool breeze when he noticed a group of people walking toward him. Leading them was Mr. Green, the head of the neighborhood association. Mr. Green was known for his sharp eyes and his love for rules. He carried a clipboard under his arm and wore an expression that made it clear he was not coming for a friendly chat. Behind him were two other members, Mrs. Hill and Mr. Brown. They looked serious, almost as if they were walking into an important meeting. Tom stayed calm, waiting for them to speak. Mr. Green cleared his throat. "Tom, we need to talk about your boat." Tom raised an eyebrow but said nothing yet. Mr. Green pointed toward the water. "That boat of yours is causing a problem. When you take it out, it makes ripples on the surface of the lake. Several neighbors have complained. They like the water calm and still. The rules of this community do not allow disturbances like that." Tom looked out at the lake. The water was never completely still. Even a gentle wind sent ripples across its surface. He turned back to Mr. Green. "Ripples? The lake has ripples every time the breeze blows or a bird lands on the water." "That may be so," Mr. Green replied firmly, "but the association has rules. Boats are not to be used if they disturb the peace of the lake. You will need to move it away from the dock. We will be sending you a notice today." Mrs. Hill added, "We must keep the neighborhood beautiful, Tom. A calm lake adds to the beauty." Mr. Brown nodded in agreement, though he did not say much. Tom listened carefully. He did not raise his voice or argue. Instead, he gave a small smile and said, "All right, I'll think about it." The group seemed pleased with his answer, though they still looked stern. Mr. Green made a note on his clipboard before they walked back up the path, leaving Tom alone by the water. When they were gone, Tom untied the rope from the dock and let his boat rest gently on the rippling surface. He sat down on the edge of the dock, watching the sunlight dance on the waves. Inside, he felt both amused and surprised. The association was demanding that he move his boat because of ripples, but they had no idea about the truth. The truth was simple. The lake was not part of the neighborhood property at all. It was his. When Tom had bought his house, he had also purchased the entire lake along with it. Every inch of water, every reed at the edge, and every stone at the bottom legally belonged to him. The dock was his, the boat was his, and the lake itself was his private property. He had never felt the need to bring it up, because most neighbors enjoyed the view and did not interfere. But now, as he thought about the association's strange demand, he realized they had no right to control what he did with his own lake. Not only that, but by walking down to his dock and standing on his land, they had stepped into a place where they had no permission. Tom leaned back and let out a soft laugh. He was not angry. He was calm, almost entertained by the thought of what would happen when the association learned the truth. They had given him a notice, but soon he would give them something far stronger in return. For now, he kept his thoughts to himself and enjoyed the gentle ripples on his lake. The next day began as usual for Tom. He woke up early, opened the window of his small study, and looked out at the calm water of the lake. Sunlight sparkled on the surface, and a pair of ducks swam close to the reeds. Tom smiled at the peaceful scene. He thought about what had happened the day before, when the association leaders had told him to move his boat. He still found it amusing. After breakfast, he walked outside to check his mailbox. Inside, he found a white envelope with the official letterhead of the neighborhood association. He already knew what it would say. He opened it slowly and read the printed notice. "Dear homeowner, you are hereby instructed to remove the boat from the dock area immediately. The use of boats is strictly forbidden if it causes ripples on the surface of the lake. This is in violation of community standards. Failure to comply may result in fines." At the bottom, Mr. Green had signed it in bold letters. Tom read it twice, then folded it neatly and placed it back into the envelope. He did not feel upset. Instead, he felt a quiet satisfaction. This was the moment when the truth would matter. Later in the day, Tom was fixing a loose board on the dock when Mrs. Hill walked by. She stopped near the path and called out to him. "Tom, I trust you received the notice this morning." "I did," Tom replied calmly. "Good," she said with a smile that seemed more forced than friendly. "It is better for the neighborhood if everyone follows the same rules. The lake looks more beautiful when it is calm, don't you think?" Tom nodded but did not answer her question directly. "Mrs. Hill, may I ask you something? Who told the association that they had control over this lake?" Mrs. Hill blinked in surprise. "Why, it is part of the community, of course. Everyone knows that." Tom gave her a polite smile. "We will see about that." She looked puzzled but did not stay long. She walked away, leaving Tom with the thought already forming in his mind. He had kept quiet for long enough. Now it was time to show the association that their claims had no power here. That evening, Tom opened a drawer in his study and pulled out a thick folder. Inside were documents from the time he had purchased the property. There were maps, surveys, and legal papers signed by the county. All of them clearly stated that the lake belonged to him alone. It was private land, not community property. The neighbors might have enjoyed the view, but they had no right to make rules about it. The following morning, Tom decided to take action. He placed a copy of the property map inside an envelope and walked to the association's office, which was located near the entrance of the neighborhood. It was a small brick building where the board members often gathered. When Tom entered, he found Mr. Green sitting at a desk with his clipboard as usual. Beside him were Mr. Brown and Mrs. Hill. They all looked up when Tom walked in. "Ah, Tom," Mr. Green said. "I hope you have come here to confirm that you will remove your boat." Tom shook his head slowly. "I came here to deliver something else." He placed the envelope on the desk. Mr. Green frowned but opened it. He unfolded the map and began to read. His confident expression changed as his eyes moved across the page. Mrs. Hill leaned over his shoulder, and Mr. Brown adjusted his glasses to get a better look. "This shows the entire lake," Tom explained in a calm voice. "And as you can see, it is marked as my private property. I bought it along with my house. The dock, the water, everything here belongs to me. Your rules do not apply." The room grew quiet. Mr. Green cleared his throat but had no words at first. Finally, he said, "That cannot be right. The lake has always been part of the neighborhood." Tom shook his head again. "Check the records at the county office if you want. You will see the truth for yourselves. By walking onto my dock yesterday, you were stepping on land that you had no right to enter. I will not tolerate anyone telling me what to do with my own property." Mrs. Hill looked uneasy, and Mr. Brown seemed unsure what to say. Only Mr. Green kept his stiff posture, but even he could not hide the doubt in his eyes. Tom did not stay long. He left them sitting in silence, still holding the map. As he walked back home, he felt a sense of calm pride. He had not raised his voice or acted rude, but he had made his point clear. The truth was on his side, and the association would soon realize it fully. That night, Tom sat on his dock, his boat tied firmly in place. The moon shone across the water, making gentle ripples that sparkled in silver light. Tom smiled to himself. The lake was his, and no notice or letter could ever change that fact. The morning after Tom had shown the documents to the association, the neighborhood was buzzing with talk. Word spread quickly that the lake did not belong to the community but to Tom alone. Some neighbors were curious, some were doubtful, and a few were even upset. Tom did not go out of his way to explain himself. He kept his calm routine, walking down to the dock in the mornings, drinking his tea, and checking on his boat. He knew the truth was written in the county records, and that was enough for him. But for the members of the association, the matter was far from over. By the end of the week, the association called for an official meeting at the community hall. Every homeowner was invited. Chairs were arranged in neat rows, and a long table stood at the front where Mr. Green and the other board members sat. The hall was filled with people, all talking in low voices. Tom arrived a few minutes after the crowd had settled. He walked in quietly and sat down near the back, not seeking attention. He knew this meeting was going to be about him, but he had nothing to hide. Mr. Green stood and cleared his throat. His voice carried across the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. We have a serious matter to discuss today. It concerns the lake and the use of it." The room went silent. All eyes turned toward him. Mr. Green continued, "As many of you know, one of our homeowners, Tom, has been keeping a boat on the lake. This boat causes ripples, which some neighbors feel disturb the beauty and peace of the water. The association has rules against such disturbances. However, Tom has challenged these rules by claiming that the lake belongs to him personally, not to the community." Murmurs filled the hall. Some people leaned closer to whisper, while others shook their heads in disbelief. Mr. Green held up a piece of paper. "Tom has presented us with documents, but we do not believe this is the full truth. We must decide as a community how to respond." At that moment, Tom stood up. His calm voice carried across the room. "With respect, Mr. Green, I have not only presented documents. I have presented legal proof. The lake was part of my purchase, and the county records will confirm that. If anyone doubts it, they can check themselves." A man from the front row raised his hand. "Is that true, Tom? You own the whole lake?" "Yes," Tom answered simply. "Every inch of it?" Some gasps rose from the crowd. A few people looked impressed, while others looked frustrated. Mrs. Hill leaned forward, speaking into her microphone. "Even if that is true, Tom, surely you understand that the lake is the heart of this neighborhood. It brings value to everyone's homes. Shouldn't it be treated as a shared treasure rather than personal property?" Tom shook his head. I have never stopped anyone from enjoying the view. The ducks, the water, the sunsets, they are for everyone to see. But the lake itself is mine. That is not opinion, that is law. The tension in the room grew thicker. Mr. Brown, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke. Perhaps we rushed with our notice. If the records do say the lake belongs to Tom, then the association may have no power here. Mr. Green's face turned red. He was not ready to give up. Even if the papers are in his name, what about the spirit of community? What about respect for rules? Tom answered firmly but politely. Respect is important, but so is truth. The rules of the association do not extend beyond the land that belongs to the community. The lake is not part of that land. By telling me to move my boat, you were trying to enforce authority where you have none. The hall grew restless. Some neighbors clapped softly, showing support for Tom. Others shook their heads and muttered to each other. The division was clear. Finally, a woman from the middle row stood up. I have lived here for 20 years. I have always loved the lake. I do not care who owns it, as long as it stays peaceful. If Tom enjoys his boat, let him. The rest of us still get the view. Why should this be a problem? Her words calmed part of the crowd, but Mr. Green did not look satisfied. He closed his clipboard with a snap. This is not over, he said. We will review this matter again after consulting legal advice. Tom gave a small nod and returned to his seat. He did not argue further. The meeting ended in unease, with groups of neighbors leaving the hall in hushed conversation. When Tom returned home, he walked straight to the dock. The water shimmered under the evening sun, and his boat floated gently on the ripples. He placed his hand on the wooden edge and smiled quietly to himself. The association was beginning to realize that their control had limits. But Tom also knew they would not let go easily. He could sense that a bigger conflict was coming, and this time, he would need more than calm words to settle it. A week passed after the heated community meeting, and the air in the neighborhood still carried tension. Some neighbors waved at Tom like nothing had changed, while others avoided him as if he had done something wrong. Tom stayed calm. He still spent his mornings by the dock, sipping tea, sometimes taking his boat out for a short ride. One morning, as Tom was trimming the bushes near his porch, a man in a suit walked up the driveway. The man carried a briefcase and a serious look. He introduced himself politely. Good morning, Mr. Tom. I am Mr. Harris, the lawyer for the neighborhood association. I have been asked to deliver this letter to you. He handed Tom an envelope. The paper inside was thick and formal, with long sentences written in strict language. Tom read the first few lines and understood the message clearly. The association was demanding once again that he remove his boat. They claimed that even if he owned the lake, his actions were affecting the community's enjoyment of the property around it. The letter also warned that failure to follow their rules could lead to penalties or even legal action. Tom folded the letter and looked at Mr. Harris. Thank you for bringing this to me, he said calmly. But I think your clients are mistaken. The lake is mine. They cannot find me or control what I do on it. Mr. Harris adjusted his tie. I am only the messenger, Mr. Tom. But I would advise you to reply soon. The association is determined. When the lawyer left, Tom went inside and opened his folder again. He studied the maps, the deeds, and the county documents. Everything was in order. He knew he had the stronger position. Still, he realized it was time to do more than simply show papers. It was time to make it official. That afternoon, Tom drove to the county office. He met with the clerk, a kind woman who had helped him years ago during the purchase. He explained the situation. She listened carefully, then pulled out the official property records. "Yes, Mr. Tom," she said after checking. "The lake is fully registered in your name. It is private property. If the association is trying to enforce rules here, they are overstepping their authority." Tom nodded. "I thought so. Could I get a certified copy of these records?" "Of course," she replied with a smile. "That way, if they challenge you again, you can show them proof with the county seal." With the certified documents in hand, Tom felt a fresh wave of confidence. He drove back home, placed the papers neatly in his folder, and sat on his porch with a new idea forming in his mind. That evening, as the sun set and painted the water orange, Tom wrote his own letter. It was short but clear. He addressed it to the neighborhood association and explained 3 points. First, the lake was his private property, as proven by certified county records. Second, any attempt to control or fine him regarding the lake was invalid. Third, their recent actions of stepping onto his dock without permission could be considered trespassing. The next morning, Tom walked to the association office and slid the envelope through the mail slot. He did not wait for a reply. Instead, he returned home and took his boat out onto the lake. He rowed slowly across the calm surface, enjoying the sound of water against the wood. The sky was clear, and the world felt peaceful. But peace was not what the association wanted. That afternoon, Mr. Green called for an emergency board meeting. Inside the brick office, he slammed Tom's letter on the table. "This is outrageous," Mr. Green said, his voice sharp. "He is threatening us with trespass. We cannot let one homeowner stand against the entire association." Mrs. Hill looked nervous. "But the county records do seem to support him. If we push too hard, we might get into trouble." Mr. Brown rubbed his chin. "Maybe we should step back. We are supposed to manage community property, not private land. If the lake really belongs to him, then we have no ground here." Mr. Green's face grew darker. "No. If we give in now, every homeowner will think they can ignore our rules. We must fight this." The board argued late into the evening, but Tom did not hear their words. He sat by his dock, watching the stars appear one by one in the night sky. He knew the fight was not finished. The association had money, power, and pride. But Tom had something stronger, the law and the truth. And he was ready to use both. The next morning, Tom woke early as usual. The lake shimmered in the soft light, and his boat floated gently against the dock. He had spent the previous evening reviewing the legal documents, feeling confident that he was on the right side of the law. But he also knew that the association would not give up easily. Sure enough, by mid-morning, a car drove slowly up Tom's driveway. It was an official-looking vehicle with the association logo on the door. 2 men stepped out carrying a small briefcase. They walked toward the dock and called Tom over. "Good morning, Mr. Tom," one of the men said politely. "We are here to deliver a notice from the association." Tom took the envelope calmly. He looked at the 2 men, who seemed uneasy. "I see," he said. "Thank you." The notice was short but bold. The association had declared that Tom had violated community rules and trespassed on what they claimed was shared property. They were now issuing a fine for his actions on the lake and at the dock. The amount was significant, clearly meant to make an impression. Tom folded the paper, his expression still calm. He handed it back to the men. "Thank you. I will consider it." The men looked confused. "Consider it? You are required to pay it," the first one said. "I am aware of that," Tom replied. "But this is private property. The dock, the water, the land surrounding it, everything belongs to me. By issuing a fine, your association is attempting to trespass on my property. That is not lawful." The two men glanced at each other, realizing they had been sent into a situation they did not fully understand. They nodded politely and left the dock, leaving Tom standing in the sun with the water reflecting the sky around him. Tom knew it was time to act officially. He sat at his desk and wrote a clear response to the association. He explained that the lake was his private property, supported by certified county records. He stated that any attempt to fine him or control his actions on his land was invalid. Finally, he added that any future attempt by the association to step onto the dock or interfere with the lake could be considered trespassing, and he reserved the right to respond legally. He sent the letter by certified mail and kept a copy in his folder. With that done, he felt a wave of calm satisfaction. He had acted correctly, and the law was on his side. That evening, Tom took his boat out onto the lake. The water was calm, and the ripples reflected the golden sunset. He rowed slowly, enjoying the quiet and the knowledge that he was in control of his own property. Meanwhile, the association board gathered for another urgent meeting. Mr. Green slammed Tom's response letter on the table. "This is unacceptable," he said. "He is mocking us and daring us to challenge him legally. We cannot back down, but we also cannot ignore this." Mrs. Hill frowned. "The records clearly show he owns the lake. We risk serious trouble if we continue to pursue this fine. Perhaps we should apologize and withdraw the notice." Mr. Brown added cautiously, "We may lose credibility if we push further. Tom has the law on his side." Mr. Green shook his head. "We cannot allow one homeowner to disregard our authority. We must find a way to respond." Back at the lake, Tom continued to enjoy his evening. He watched the sky turn shades of pink and orange, feeling a quiet sense of power. He realized the association had underestimated him. They thought that rules alone could control people, but truth and law were far stronger than any paper notice. That night, he left the dock lights on and went inside. He was ready for whatever the association might try next. They had sent a fine, but he had already planned his response. The lake was his, the dock was his, and he would protect both calmly and firmly. As he lay in bed, Tom smiled. He knew the next move in this conflict would be critical. The association might escalate, but he had the law, the evidence, and the quiet determination to stand his ground. The battle over the lake was far from over, but Tom felt certain of one thing: he would not be intimidated. The following week, tension in the neighborhood grew. Rumors about Tom owning the entire lake spread like wildfire. Some neighbors felt sympathy for him, while others were frustrated that the association had been proven wrong. Tom, however, stayed calm, focusing on his routine and keeping his mind clear. One morning, a letter arrived at his porch. It was from the association again, marked urgent. Tom opened it carefully. The association now claimed they had legal authority over the lake, citing rules that did not exist in county records. They threatened more fines and legal action. Tom leaned back in his chair, smiling slightly. He had anticipated this. He decided it was time to act decisively. He opened his folder and gathered the certified county documents, surveys, and maps that showed the lake belonged entirely to him. He also drafted a new letter, firm but polite, addressed to the association. In it, he explained that they had no legal authority to fine him or control his lake. Furthermore, he pointed out that by stepping onto his dock or sending representatives onto his property without permission, they were trespassing. To make it clear, he added that he would be charging them a fine for trespass if it continued. After sealing the envelope, Tom made a few copies for his records and then drove to the association office personally. He handed the letter to the receptionist and asked her to deliver it to Mr. Green and the board members immediately. She looked slightly nervous but agreed. That afternoon, the board gathered around Mr. Green's desk. He opened Tom's letter and read it aloud. The room fell silent as each member processed the contents. Mr. Green's face darkened as he realized the severity of the situation. "He's serious," Mrs. Hill said softly. "He is claiming trespass fines against us. If we continue, we could be in legal trouble." Mr. Brown nodded. "He has the certified documents. The county records prove he owns the lake. We cannot argue against that." Mr. Green slammed his hand on the desk. "I don't like this. He is making us look weak. We cannot let a single homeowner humiliate the entire association." Mrs. Hill replied carefully, "Mr. Green, this is not humiliation. This is the law. We have ignored the legal details for too long, but we cannot fight against them. If we step onto his property again, we risk real penalties." Mr. Green sighed heavily. "Fine. But how do we resolve this without losing face?" "By accepting reality," Mrs. Hill answered. "We withdraw the fines. We acknowledge that the lake belongs to Tom. That is all. No further rules should be imposed on him." Back at his house, Tom watched the board members leave the office. He had no intention of celebrating too loudly. He preferred calm, quiet victory. He walked down to the dock, ran his hand over the wooden railing, and took in the view of the lake. The water reflected the late afternoon sun, and the ripples from his boat sparkled like gold. Tom knew the association would not openly admit defeat. They would try to spin the story to the neighbors, but that did not matter. The law was on his side, and he had made his position clear. Any attempt to trespass in the future would be met with legal action, and this time, he would be prepared. Over the next few days, the neighborhood began to notice a change. The association no longer approached Tom about the lake. Notices stopped arriving, and board members seemed hesitant to speak to him directly. Some neighbors even came by to thank him quietly for standing firm. A few asked how he had managed to protect his property so effectively. Tom remained humble. He simply smiled and said, "I followed the law, and I stayed calm." That was enough. By evening, he took his boat out one more time. He rowed slowly across the lake, feeling the soft breeze and listening to the sound of water lapping against the boat. The sky turned shades of pink and purple, and a sense of peace filled him. He had not only protected his property, but he had also taught the association an important lesson: rules do not matter if they are not backed by law. Tom knew the victory was complete. The lake belonged to him, the dock was his, and the boat floated safely on the water as a symbol of calm strength. No letter, no notice, and no fine could change that. For the first time in weeks, Tom allowed himself to relax fully. The conflict had ended, and he could enjoy his lake in peace. The morning after the association finally backed down, the neighborhood felt different. There was a quiet respect toward Tom, though no one said it out loud. Some neighbors greeted him warmly, others simply nodded, but all seemed aware of the truth now. Tom, however, continued his usual routine, calm as ever. He walked to the dock with his cup of tea, watching the sun rise over the water. The lake shimmered in the early light, every ripple reflecting the pink and gold sky. He untied his boat and pushed it gently into the water, listening to the soft sound as it floated. With the association's last notice officially dismissed and his own letters confirmed by the county, Tom knew the lake was secure. He had legally protected his property, and the association had no right to interfere. No fines, no threats, no letters could ever change that. Over the next few days, the neighborhood settled into a new rhythm. The board members of the association avoided confronting Tom. Mr. Green no longer approached the dock, and Mrs. Hill kept her distance, speaking only when necessary. A few neighbors came by to chat casually, asking about fishing or how he kept his boat so well maintained. Tom answered politely, never bragging, just sharing simple advice. One afternoon, a small group of children wandered to the lake with their parents. They were curious about the boat and asked if they could watch him row. Tom smiled and agreed. He showed them how to push the oars, how to move quietly across the water, and how to respect the lake and its life. The children listened eagerly, their eyes wide with excitement. Tom realized that even though the conflict had been tense, it had allowed him to teach others something important. That evening, Tom invited a few neighbors to sit on the dock. They watched the sunset together in quiet conversation. No rules, no arguments, just people enjoying the view and the calm water. Tom felt a sense of fulfillment he had not expected. It was not about winning against the association but about protecting something beautiful and sharing it respectfully. The lake had become a symbol of quiet strength. The ripples from Tom's boat no longer mattered, they were part of the lake's life, just as the wind, birds, and fish were. He had shown that peace and law could coexist, that calm determination could solve even tense conflicts. Later that week, Tom received one last letter from the association. It was short and formal, acknowledging that the lake was private property and that they would take no further action. He read it, smiled, and placed it carefully in his folder. There was no anger, no satisfaction in revenge, only relief. Tom spent the afternoon on the water, rowing slowly to the middle of the lake. The sun was warm, and the water glistened like diamonds. He breathed deeply, feeling the gentle breeze on his face. The boat moved easily, the oars cutting silently through the water. It was perfect calm, a calm he had earned through patience, knowledge, and courage. As the days passed, life in the neighborhood returned to normal. The association still existed, but its control over the lake had ended. The neighbors learned to respect Tom's rights and his calm approach. He never boasted about his victory, he simply continued to live peacefully by the lake. Tom often thought about the struggle with the association. He realized it had taught him patience, courage, and the importance of knowing one's rights. He also understood that standing firm with respect and calmness could achieve more than anger or force ever could. Each evening, as he sat on the dock watching the sun dip below the horizon, Tom smiled quietly to himself. The lake was his, safe and serene. The boat floated gently, reflecting the sky. Peace had been restored, not through conflict or power, but through truth and calm determination. And so, life continued by the lake, quiet, simple, and full of gentle ripples, exactly as it should be.